I don't. And be okay with that, not feel like a bad mother, because what you need in that minute is like a glass of wine and a foot rub.
Right.
And you're okay with that. So that's one of the biggest myths for sure. Work-life balance, I believe it's unattainable. And I think instead women should look at ways to create harmony between all facets of their lives.
So if you decide that that's what you want to start moving towards harmony, what's some pointers as to how a woman can begin doing that today?
Self-exploration. Once again, I have there's so many people out there in this industry of lifestyle management. That's what I call it. I don't know what anybody else calls it. But this idea of lifestyle management, to take an assessment, self-exploration means taking a look at yourself and your environment, and again, asking yourself what you need in that moment. What's working now? So something as simple as an inventory, sitting down towards the end of your day and saying, okay, here's what happened today from the moment you got up to when you went to bed, and look at all the parts of it that felt good, and then the parts of it, conversely, that felt not so good. Then as you start looking at that, maybe you track that for a while so that you can see your patterns, because it's not what we do in one single moment that really creates the lifestyle. It's about looking at your patterns. And when you can start to recognize your patterns by doing things like journaling and doing these self-assessments and seeing what feels good, being really present, writing that down so you can look at it another day, when you start to identify those patterns, I think that is the first step towards work-life harmony and ultimately radical self-expression, because then you can say, oh, it looks like around this time of day, I seem to feel like I'm in a funk. What's going on with that? Sometimes it's related to your diet. Sometimes it's related to toxic relationships. Sometimes it's related to your lack of expression or self-expression, right? So you're allowing people to dictate how you are in the day at work, and then you take that home too. You can start to see those patterns, and then you can start to test those boundaries a little bit. What if I didn't speak to that person for a couple of days? What if I took a few days off work to pay some attention to what's going on with me? What if I turned my hair orange to see what that felt like? Little things like that. You have to test the boundaries, because oftentimes, Ivy, I think those boundaries are set up by other people for us. A lot of times well-meaning people like family and friends. But at some point, as a woman, you have to take a look at those little blocks on that boundary and be like, I don't even like that color. Why am I still here? And why didn't I say something about that? Why didn't I make a different decision? Not from a place of judgment, but just from a place of saying, by the way, I do get to choose. And here's how I can make one tiny choice and then have that build upon itself to the point where you really feel what I call fully expressed.
So as a mom, how do you have two daughters,
Mm-hmm.
how do you incorporate this radical self-expression and put them on that path so they don't end up having to figure it out like we do now in the middle of life?
Right, that's a really, really good question, Ivy, and I love all questions that have to do with my daughters. But I like this one in particular because the answer for me is so juicy. Like, the reality is that we keep each other on that path. It's not just me. It isn't this authoritative, I am mother, and I'm 34, and you are 8 and 6, so I know things and you do not. It's actually more of a harmony. They remind me, just by being themselves, how to be myself more and what radical self-expression means. And then I help them with things like self-governance. That's a big term in our household. Ways that you can express yourself, spend time with yourself and be okay with that, and share what it is that you need in our house in a manner that's respectful for us. So, for example, if my youngest daughter, Sage, she's definitely more reserved. She's one of the more reserved people in our household. If she needs something, we will work on radical self-expression from the perspective of don't just lock yourself in the room because you're unhappy with how your sister treated you or what I didn't give you. Find a way to express that, right? And we set boundaries so you can't just be like, mommy, blah, 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 blah. But you do get to express yourself. And that might look like writing, that might look like speaking, or whatever that is for you, but you have to pay attention to that and nurture that. And as I said, they in turn remind me of how to be unfiltered in my space to say, this isn't serving me anymore. No, thank you. That's Sage's favorite term. No, thank you. no matter what you're asking her, even if it's not a close-ended question, like if you say, this is in the book too, Sage, clean up your toys, because we're not going to get to go to the park if you don't clean up your toys. No, thank you. That's just her way of saying, I don't feel like doing that right now. Even though I will get her to do it ultimately, she's still practicing a space of going automatically with how she really feels and then going from there. Yeah, it's simple, but it's profound in our house.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of parents might assume that self-expression is the opposite of order. So, yeah. Yeah. And I never even thought of that. Thank you for saying that. That makes a lot of sense. But it really isn't. It's more so a divine order, because it doesn't mean that you are not tactful and that you're not understanding or caring or conscious of what someone else feels. It just means that you don't put less weight on what you want. The other person doesn't automatically come first. And I think as women, I believe that a lot of us have been groomed that way, especially by society. Like there's a role that women are supposed to fill, and it's one that makes other people comfortable. You think of a king of the household or someone's secretary, which is traditionally a female. All these different roles that say, hey, woman, make this environment comfortable. Right. But that nurturing, that safety, that way that we do make people comfortable, that is one side of who we are. And we get to be our full selves when we're in life design mode, because we're constantly adjusting our environment to fit what we need in that moment. Still conscious of what other people want too, because we love and care for all these people willingly, but not at the expense of ourselves. Yeah. So if I'm a woman and I'm listening to you and I'm saying, okay, I had a light bulb moment. I realize there's some things that I connect with. There's some things that I'm hearing. There are some changes I do want to make. How can Execumama or Life Design help me from here?
Well, the beautiful thing about what I do is that it's highly customized. I always tell people that I spent so many months banging out this curriculum and all these steps. Here are the 9 steps of life design, blah, blah. And I kept some of them because they were consistent as I worked with different types of women. But ultimately, it's a customized experience. If you go to the lifedesignagency.com or execumama.com, it's the same site. You'll see some of the work that I do. So I have workshops like Live Your Grain, which can be done for one person or a group, which really helps you with that self-exploration element where you start to see your patterns and then really dig into those. Right. I have something that I recently created called Voice Lessons that is focused on how to unmute your voice. Again, looking at your patterns, but this one is more about the other end of the spectrum. So when you realize what areas are muted, what do you do? So I focus on that, and I work specifically with women, mothers, and entrepreneurs around this idea of showing up as your fullest self in all aspects of your life. So I would say visit me at thelifedesignagency.com. My blog is execumama.com/life, having a lot of conversation there around life design elements. And if nothing else, if you don't feel ready to do that yet, journaling. I'm a big fan of that. Start getting in touch with your feelings, but make sure that you do something with what you find as you explore.
Action.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Akilah, for sharing your story with us and for helping women unmute.
Thank you, Ivy. I appreciate your time and the big share, and you keep doing what you're doing too, because I love your radical self-expression. You know this.
Thank you.
Okay, peace.